All right, it's Friday, so we are live here in Engine Power. This is going to be a really good one because it's been a big week for Engine Power. We got a lot of stuff going on, so we're going to talk about some projects. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to talk tech. We're going to do all kinds of stuff. But starting out, we want to remind you that March 10th, 2026 is the deadline for our 534 cubic inch big block giveaway. This is the big block powerhouse giveaway with UEM pistons. The deadline for this is coming up soon, so you need to get entered. If you haven't already, you need to go to the PowerNationTV.com webpage and go to the giveaways tab and get entered, or you can screenshot this QR code on this board right here, and that will take you right to the page. It's free to enter. You could potentially win this big block Chevy, which looks pretty cool. I mean, it runs good and it looks cool at the same time.
I think it's cool because, well, what's cooler than a big block Chevy? Not a lot of stuff, right?
Not a lot of stuff, yeah.
No, this is something this is not something that's out of this world, like hard on parts. It's going to be very, very user friendly. We've built it specifically to be user friendly, right? So enter to win it, and we'd love to see this in the frame rails of your project. And whoever does win it, please, keep us in the loop on how this thing does, right? Because we love seeing our stuff get used. So use it, abuse it. So
yeah, I mean, 11 8-to-1, 93 octane pump gas. It's got hydraulic roller cam that's nice, easy, mild. This engine makes great power. It will not, it's not crazy where you got to rebuild your whole car to get it in there, but it's spicy. This thing will burn the tires off anything. It'll tow trailers if you wanted to. It's got a Phytech Nemesis fuel injection system on it, so you got good fuel control, you got timing control. You can really tune this thing up for whatever you're doing, and it's a great package. Can't wait to see what it's going to go into, whoever's going to win it. I'm really excited, and yeah, like I said, the giveaway is ending March 10th, 2026, so you have basically like a week and a half left to get entered.
Yeah, get after it, come on.
Yeah, if you haven't already,
what's the holdup?
Make sure you get it, because this could be yours.
All right, so what do we do this week? I have a fresh coffee, and so do you, so let's talk about our successes this week.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room,
we
right?
We had a really great week here at the shop. We've done some pretty fun stuff. Yeah. One of the things that we like to do is we like to give data. So the last of our data projects that we've been completing is the ones in the dining room. And I tell you what, this lit up the internet on some of the stuff that we posted about it. And it's really neat because we love to see how passionate people are about engines. No matter what, us personally, we're not brand loyal. We love engines, right? And engines, like we always say, engines don't know what kind of engine they are. They don't know the brand. They know only a few things. So we used a couple of engines that we had literally laying around the shop, and we've evolved these into their current state. So let's talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, so if you have any questions about any of our projects or whatever, make sure you put them in the comments. We're going to be going through as we go. We're going to be looking at the comment section, answering questions about anything, the giveaway, current projects, potential projects, or if you're really going to get spicy, we can talk 302, 305. So if you're not familiar, this is a series that we have done, like he said, to show data. Basically, a lot of what we do.
I don't know who's not familiar with this at this point.
I would think almost everyone, but just in case you've maybe been living under a rock or something like that.
Yeah, whatever.
Maybe it just popped up on your radar this week. You don't know. This has lit up the internet several times, and this week alone, the Engine Power Facebook page has had over 3 million views because of these two right here. So thank you guys for your support.
Yes, thank you very much. That means a lot to us that people that watch this stuff.
Yeah, and being engaged, right? Because we are passionate about engines. We love seeing other people be passionate about engines. But so here's the background on this. So this is a 1984 305 out of a Caprice wagon and a 1990 302 out of a Mustang, right? So the whole idea of this project was to do progressive upgrades on both engines, keeping the upgrades as similar as possible as we went to show what they do for power, because there's a lot of debate between bore and stroke on the 302 and bore and stroke on the 305, and what makes power and what will make more torque and all kinds of stuff like that. And so we wanted to show some data on it, some real data in multiple different configurations, not just one and done. So we started out doing, some real easy stuff, hydraulic roller cams, intakes. Then we went to the best production heads that you guys requested. So the Ford got GT40Ps, the Chevy got a set of 059 Vortex. It kind of killed the compression on the Chevy, so it was like a point lower. It was very low. So
it was what we could do at the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, without changing more parts, that's what we got. So then we brought them back, and we decided to up the compression on both of them and get them as close as possible with a set of UEM pistons. So got a forged piston coming out of the Ford, so a forged piston went back in. Got a hyper-eutectic coming out of the Chevy, so a hyper-eutectic went back in. But we got them both right up to around, I believe it was 10.9 on that last version, but they were within 0.01 of a point of compression of each other, and they basically made the same power. Now those are still hydraulic rollers with the factory head, so they made basically right at 360 for power and torque. So this this version, it's not the final version maybe, but this latest version, I should say, is really cool because one of the things we always get requests for, and it takes a little time to get together and build stuff, is small displacement engines that turn a bunch of RPM, which we think is cool. We also think big engines that turn a bunch of RPM is cool too. Yeah. But we decided this would be a perfect place to build these. So what we did was we swapped out for a set of much better aluminum heads for both engines and big solid roller camshafts to turn a bunch of RPM and test them against each other.
Yeah, so keep in mind, this engine right here, it's a 305, so right now with its overbore, this is 310 cubic inches, so not a large engine. This one is 306-inch engine. So again, just a 30 over. Actually, everything else has the stock cast cranks in them. They have the stock connecting rods in them. We have a lot of stock componentry. The idea of this is to show what we can do as we step up parts. Now, obviously, this changes the operating range of the engine. If we put these big old honking solid rollers in it, it is going to sacrifice a little bit of power down low, which that's okay. That is by design. But these engines, we get a lot of questions on why didn't we do certain things? Why didn't we use this head or why didn't we use that head? What we've tried to accomplish here is we're trying to teach about physics in an engine, right? Just dimensions, physics, how engines work, how volumetric efficiency works, how things change when you change certain parts. Engines in themselves are, I've said it before, they're relatively predictable. So we have two cylinder heads that we chose to be as equal as we could get them without getting too crazy or doing something custom.
Yeah.
So we have a set of 175 cc heads on the 305. The nice thing about these heads is they have a 1.940 intake valve, 1.600 exhaust, and they have a small enough chamber that fits on the small bore of a 305. Now a 305, people, they always classify that bore as tiny. It's not exactly tiny. It is basically very, very close to a 4.8 or 5.3 LS. And as if the internet shows us, we compared this to an LS, and we actually on our social media said could be the LS's worst nightmare. And I tell you what, we might as well just roll a grenade in the room, right? Because we're not trying to say stock versus stock, whatever. Aftermarket head, like this head, they flow, relatively decent for an aftermarket head. But the reason we use that size head is because for the Ford, we got one that is similar in size. This is a 170 cc head with a 1.900 intake valve. They flow almost the same. They flow within a couple of percent at any lift point. So that means they have about the same velocity going through them. They have about the same volumetric efficiency on the engine that they're on for their RPM range. So we can put better stuff on, like why didn't you do this? Why didn't you put better heads on both? But this is so we can keep them comparable.
And that was the point I was going to make, is that there's nothing that says we won't do that in the future. It's this balance, right? Because you Ford guys, I know it. Big bore, 4-inch bore, big bore can physically fit a larger valve. So all you Ford guys are probably thinking that's not fair because the Ford can fit a larger valve. You should have put a bigger one on it. And that's not necessarily wrong. But the other side of that is a lot of people want to see what they do with the same parts. Does the forged bore have an advantage when it's on the same or similar size valve and similar flow and things like that? So that was really what we wanted to test in this one. There's nothing that says we can't bring it back later and really, because you can actually fit a slightly larger head on the 305. You just have to do a little bit of work.
You have to do some work.
Yeah, if you've seen our Ultimate 305 build, we actually put a 2020 valve on a 305, had to do a little bit of notching on the cylinder and stuff like that. So that might be something that we do later on, is bring these back and say, okay, what's the best heads we can get for both and something like that, and retest them. But yeah, comparable was what we were going for here, so we can really test out that bore and stroke theory. And so we followed that with the cams too. I saw some questions about what cams we were running. So these cams are identical. We're just going to call it that. They are identical. They are a Comp Cams Extreme Energy solid roller, and both engines use the exact same series of lobe, the same exact lobes. They have the same durations. They're on the same lobe separation angle, and they have the exact same lift. Exactly. So it's exactly. So they're both 248, 254s at 50. They are on a 110 LSA, and they both have 600 thousandths inch of lift on the intake and 606 thousandths on the exhaust net lift with our lash and all our setup. They have the same ratio of rockers, and like he said, the heads flow within they're within 2 CFM at 600 thousandths. So, you know, that's as close as we can physically make it. And so I think you guys are going to be really interested to see the results on what these engines do, because this is about as fair as a test as we've ever seen as far as comparable parts on different engines.
Yeah, we made them as equal as possible. Like, you know, they nothing has a trick ring pack in it. We have the cams are degreed within basically a quarter of a degree from each other, so there's no advantages advancing or retarding the cam or anything like that. They use the exact same carburetor and manifold spacer. This is a 2-inch 4-hole Wilson that we run on it, and the Edelbrock's VR Series 950. So great carburetor. This thing, a lot of questions we get, it's always a question of, is a carburetor too big for an application? Now this 306-inch engine, 950 CFM carburetor. Well, the air that's the capability of it. It doesn't flow that just when it's sitting there. It goes on when the blades are open and what the demand of the engine has. That's how carburetors work. They work under barometric pressure basically. So as long as everything is jetted right, these are a very nice carburetor because they're a triple circuit carb. So they have dual power valves in them, so they can idle very easily, very efficiently. So all through the power range, very tunable, right? So we can make these things run not only clean and idle, but we can make them very tunable and get them where they're supposed to be at wide open RPM. And coincidentally, because we have engines with similar VEs, similar cubic inch size. Now this Chevy is a big monster. You know, it's 310. So it's this 4 cubic inches bigger.
It's got the advantage.
It's got the advantage. You know, it's got that long stroke. But there's some things when engines. We go over this. You know, when this episode is going to air, we go over things when things are similar like this. They behave pretty similar. Again, the air doesn't know, the engines doesn't know. Nobody knows the brand of this stuff. They know about the physics of it, right?
I'll drop this. They are similar, but they are not the same. So I'll just put that out there. You guys can kind of, you know, guess or argue about which one is which, but they are similar, but not the exact same, which is really interesting. And yeah, we go over that in the show. I know a lot of you guys are looking for the dyno, looking for the show. We've posted dyno clips on the Engine Power and Power Nation social media, but the actual full video with the dyno, the numbers, the parts and assembly and everything will be coming in a few weeks. We literally just wrapped it up this week, so it's got to go through a little bit of a process, and then it will be airing very shortly, so make sure you keep an eye out for it. But yeah, and I think, I don't know if we mentioned this, but they are also still extremely close on compression.
Yeah.
We staggered head gasket thickness to make sure that they are a little bit higher, so now the Ford is right at 11.0 to 1, and the Chevy is at 10.99 to 1. Yeah. So if you think the Ford has the advantage, I promise it's not that big of a difference. But yeah, we, again, trying to get them as close as possible. They took basically the same tune-up, which is, you know, and that's the data that we were looking at. Is like, okay, engines with similar displacement, similar VE, similar manifold restriction, similar BSFC numbers, all that kind of stuff is really cool to look at, and we share that with you guys in the show because it's super fun, and I think everybody can learn from this. This is just good data.
Yep, so. With the domes they both had on, they take similar timing, right? Yeah. And because we're using the exact same gasoline, we dyno these things basically within an hour and a half of each other. Yeah. So all of our atmospheric conditions are the same. These are as close as we can get them. What this is, like I said, we're trying to show people at pump gas levels and at this level of VE and this level of parts, the engines are going to be similar. As power goes up, you're going to see a difference in parts because we have to change a few things to make things do what you want, right? So you're going to start seeing a little bit of separation on what's going to happen with the engines as you go up in power. Can both of them make a lot more power? Yes, but we are going to run into some limitations. As you know, the limitations we have right now is we have a lot of stock parts, and you know, the stock connecting rod in a Ford, if you've ever had these type of 302s, it has a 5/16 rod bolt, and this is a regular 1990 one from a Mustang. Not that it's bad, but it has a 5/16 rod bolt that's torqued to like 22 pound-feet, right? So that's, if you think about 22 pound-feet, if anybody of you have a torque wrench, just go click something at 22 pound-feet, and that's what's holding this thing together at 7,500 RPM, right?
Yeah.
With a piston that you know, on its G-force, it's heavier than your vehicle, right? Yeah, so it's trying to throw that piston out into orbit, and that rod bolt is holding on for dear life. So, which we still think is cool. But they have stock rods, stock cranks, And so that we're going to start running into limitations. Again, we're not here to vaporize anything, right? We can run these things till they parts exit the oil pan. We call that a catastrophic oil pan failure, right?
Yeah.
But we can do that, but we're not going to, because we're not physically going to push something to a point where it's going to let go, because we know better than that. So if we're going to do something that makes more power, we're going to upgrade the parts accordingly.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions about on social media, like why the stock rods. And the truth of it is originally this was very budget based. I will say this version you kind of throw that out the window a little bit, because when you start wanting to turn to RPM and make horsepower, the cost goes up. That's just a fact of life. But
no matter what it
is, no matter what it is, whether it's a 305 or a big block Chevy, it doesn't matter.
Or an LS.
Or an LS. That's true. But yeah, so with the cast iron production head version, we're like, this is no problem. We did this one. We're like, should we do that? Well, we get a lot of requests, and this is a balancing act for us. Is everybody's budget is different, and we totally get that, and we know this stuff isn't cheap. Horsepower costs money, right? So it's like, what should we put rods in it? Should we not? And we determined that at this RPM level and this power level, for a street engine, this would be fine. If you were going to run either of these engines in a racing application, say you're going to make multiple passes, you're going to run seasons with this at the drag strip, or you're going to put it in like a road race car, we would put forged cranks and forged rods in it. If you watch the show, we like overbuilding stuff. So we're not opposed to that at all. But for these engines and the theme of what this series is and these applications, which is basically street stuff still, I'd say this is rowdy street stuff.
Yeah.
They would be fine. Both these engines have over 25 pulls on them at that RPM range. And in a street car, 95% of the time, you're just cruising around and driving around. You're making a rip every now and then. So they would live quite a long time. If you were going to do any kind of racing application, we would say, you'd put better internals in them. But a lot of things would change, especially like big question was the fuel. What fuel are we running them on? These are still on pump gas, so 93 octane pump gas. So we're not running them on race fuel or anything like that. They're still in a very safe compression ratio range, right at 11-to-1.
Right.
So we like to do most of our stuff on pump gas because we know it's relatable for you guys.
Way easier and way cheaper.
Yeah, not a lot of people have $15 to $20 a gallon to dump on race gas just for fun hot rod stuff. So we base a lot of what we do around pump gas, so that way it's more relatable. And some of the stuff we do, you could detune down for 87 with no issues. Some of the stuff we do is a little more extreme. I would say I wouldn't try to put either one of these on 87. I would put straight 93 on for sure.
You're going to get into a danger zone because of detonation, right? And that's what breaks a lot of stuff. We get these as well. Engines at certain power levels, like the big thing, like at 302s, they just split in half at 500 horse. Well, that's not that it hasn't happened before, but usually what happens is someone will put an engine into detonation from missing the tune. And detonation does a lot of freaky stuff in an engine, has a lot of pressure spikes, has a lot of things that is very detrimental to structure, right? So when you're detrimental to structure, something is going to give. And the weak point a lot of times on a mistuned engine that makes a lot of power is something in either the main webbing or in the center of the block, how it's cast or whatever like that. The blocks can split. I've been doing this for, better part of 40 years, and the only blocks that I have actually ever seen that are split or someone just completely missed the tune on a giant nitrous pass or something like that, and it's going to go south. But engines like the dyno, everyone said, one of our questions is, will these engines ever run in a car? I guess what's the term? It's dyno queen, isn't it?
Yeah, that's usually the term that maybe some guys are throwing. It's like, it must be a dyno queen. And I can tell you right now, we don't build any engines for the dyno, right?
No.
Everything that we build is for the application. Whether it's street stuff or race stuff, we build it so it lasts in that application. And so you may see us do 2 pulls on our show for each engine or whatever,
for the power numbers that we're going to show.
2, 3 because from a time standpoint, we want to show you guys the best data. We want to show you the most important stuff. But most of the time, we will have at least a dozen or 2 dozen pulls on an engine before we even get to that point, to make sure we get the tune-up, figure out what we need for a tune-up and all that kind of stuff. If it's a fuel injection system, we need to go through and we're usually building a base map from scratch, or the system has to learn. So we're going to go through that kind of stuff and get all that done, because that's just normal things that you're going to have to do when you do it in your vehicle. But dyno queen stuff doesn't exist in here, because anything that we build is absolutely put through the ring on the dyno. The idea, and we got a lot of questions about the acceleration rate of the engine during a dyno pull, right? If you're not familiar how a dyno works...
There's a nice sidebar.
It's a nice sidebar. I know we're talking about 302, 305 stuff, but if you're not familiar how a dyno works, we program an RPM range that the engine will sweep through. So the process of a pull is once we have that programmed in, we tell it we want it between, in this case, 4,500 and 7,200, and then we tell it we want to accelerate the engine's RPM rate at 300 RPM a second, or 400, or 500, or 600. The standards basically for the industry are 300 and 600 per second, depending on how hard you're trying to load the engine. We generally like to do our stuff at 300 RPM a second. So we'll accelerate, basically we will put the engine to full throttle, the dyno will catch it, and it will hold it at our start RPM, like say 4,500.
Under full load.
Under full load, wide open throttle. So it's like you have your foot to the floor and your car is not moving anywhere. And then we will tell the dyno to start the test, and then it will sweep through that range at that predetermined rate, usually 300 RPM a second for us. And then when it gets to the top, it will grab the engine and actually pull it back down so it controls the RPM of the engine. So we usually we don't have rev limiters set or anything, like we have them way up out of the way. We let the dyno control it, grab the engine, pull it back down. You'll hear it load the engine back down, and then we pull out a full throttle. The dyno tells us all the data and all that kind of stuff. So if you ever hear a dyno pull and you're wondering why does it sound so slow? Why is that engine struggling? It's because we are running the engine at full load and the dyno is physically loading the engine as basically as hard as the engine can work. It is loading it, and then it is controlling how fast it can go through the RPM range. So it sounds complicated. Once you watch it, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But we get a lot of questions on that. People who aren't familiar with dyno stuff or haven't had a lot of time around it can be kind of confusing because it sounds like the engine's blowing up during the pull, and it's not. It's just fully loaded. And so loading it at 300 RPM per second like that is a slow pull. That's like making a really long high gear pass. And we do that so that we physically load the engine probably harder than it's ever going to see in its lifetime. If it's a race engine, then we'll do a lot of like cycle testing. We'll make a pull. As soon as it's over, we'll start another one and make another pull. We'll put it through its paces, because if anything bad happens, we want it to happen here, not once it gets in the car. So we will go through and we will torture test them, is what we call it, because we want to make sure that the engine itself is mechanically sound, and usually pulling it a little bit lower gets us more accurate fueling data, especially like for EFI stuff. That slower data gives you a little bit of a better sample on the data log, and then we can more accurately tune that for higher load applications.
That's correct. So the engine, if you think about it, the engine in any sort of street car is always at partial throttle. How many times is it at actual wide open throttle at full load? Because it's either spinning the tires or in gear where it's the acceleration rate. This is almost the hardest, probably, unless it's strictly a racing application, this is the hardest the engine will ever work. So if it lives here, it will for sure live on the street. So no dyno queen. So
talk about the carb hat, because we got a couple questions about
this right here.
They're wondering what that is. Is it an air cleaner? What is it?
So what this is it's an air hat that contains a small fan in it, and it tracks the airflow. How many CFM of air actually goes through the engine that is measured. Now you can have theoretical CFMs, like this carburetor flows 950 CFM. That does not mean that it does it all the time, right? It's strictly dependent on the engine's VE and how high the engine is spinning. So you can calculate how much VE an engine, how much carburetor will have per VE. So a simple calculation, if you want to use it for 100% volumetric efficiency, theoretically, on any given size engine, you take the cubic inch of the engine and you multiply it by the RPM that you project it to turn, and then you divide that by 3456. And that was theoretically the 100% volumetric efficiency of CFM that the engine requires. So some are more, some are less, depending on what we're doing. We have 950 CFM capable on this engine. This engine physically isn't big enough and physically doesn't turn enough RPM in this state to require completely 950 CFM. But that doesn't mean that the carburetor is too big, because we have a very, very accurate way of adjusting the fuel curve of this rig. So, and the aftermarket, that's why we are so blessed in the aftermarket that stuff has come out in the last few years that is just game changers, stuff that makes you have to work a lot less and look a lot smarter, because the stuff is better. So
yeah, I remember spending like couple hours getting every part of the graph tuned in for fuel, and now you kind of just like put it on and they've already got it basically calibrated out of the box. And it's like, we just changed the main jets once or twice, and it's like, all right, it's good.
The aftermarket has done a spectacular job at making things better.
Yeah, so it's wild, and there's nothing wrong with smaller carbs, and depending on the application, there can absolutely be an application for that. Basically, I mean, the biggest one is like dirt track racing. That's the most popular one that I always see it in. Is like you get a slick track going at the end of the night or something. You change out the carb, put a small one on, kill a bunch of power of the engine just for traction. You know.
Wait, what was that?
Yeah.
Did you say put a smaller carb on to kill power?
I mean, that's the point of it.
That's what happens.
And sometimes it's 5 horsepower. Sometimes it's a lot more, depending on what the engine is and what the V is. So it kind of depends. But generally, for stuff like this, if you're going to run a partial throttle road racing is a great example, right? You might size down the carburetor a little bit for what you're thinking, because you might have a lot of on and off throttle transition. You have a lot of partial throttle stuff,
right?
And it's a lot easier to dial in that fueling throughout that partial throttle range if you step down a few sizes. If you're doing something like street car stuff or drag racing stuff, and you spend a little bit of time actually like tuning your carburetor, getting it dialed in, then you can run a big carb and have no issues. We've got some great, I mean, these are great examples of that. The Granada's a great example. That has a 950. It's a solid roller, single plane. It's actually the same single plane as that one.
Yeah.
And it's got a 950 on it, drives around the street, and that thing cruises at like 14.3, 14.5 for AFRs. Idles clean at like 14.0, which is basically what these do too, and has no stumbles, anything crazy like that. It just takes a little bit more time to get it dialed in.
Like everything else, it takes time and experience, and the more you work on it, the better you get at it. So, do we have any questions or anything?
I mean, we've been kind of going through them. We've been doing it pretty good.
Oh man, we just been going through them as we go.
We did get one that. Maybe we might have to do one of these. We got a question about doing a 3.9 LA, like the V6 Dodge engines.
Oh, yeah.
Which, totally not opposed to. I will tell you, we have some LA stuff coming. It's not a 3.9, but we have some LA stuff.
But it has
coming.
a 3 in the title.
It has a 3 in the name.
It has a 3 and a 1 and an 8. I mean, that's all I'm going to give you right there.
I was like, yeah, that's all I'll give you, just the whole thing. But a question from, I think that is Geoduck. It says, question, my C10 small block Chevy 305 will receive a rebuild shortly. 059 Vortec heads, Biocam, Quadrajet, headers, Performer intake, Turbo 350. What compression do you guys suggest? Daily driver for an old guy. If you like to run 93 octane, if you don't mind putting a quality fuel in it, we would say, anywhere between, if you really want to like squeeze it, I'd say 10.5 to 11.5 to 1 is a nice, good power range, and not towards detonation. You could keep it out of detonation with the right tune-up very easily.
What keeps it out of detonation?
The right tune-up, basically, is the biggest one, and a lot of that is VE. So
VE is what keeps it out of detonation.
Yeah.
The static compression ratio stuff, that's always a big thing, where you have a specific octane number for a static compression ratio. Well, that's a very, very vague term, right? Because if you look at stuff that's nowadays, like all the modern stuff, all that stuff is between 11.5 and 12.5 to 1.
Yeah.
And that stuff will run on 87 rot gut, because we have very, very good fuel management and very, very good timing management, right?
You have knock control and things like that.
Yeah, you have a lot of good control.
And you can tune that into an older engine, no problem.
You sure can.
Even carbureted, you have to be a lot more conservative.
Yeah.
So generally people ask us, like, why do you run 93? Why don't you 87? It's because it gives us a safety net when we're tuning the engine.
It gives you a bigger tuning window.
Yeah, in 87, you can, if you miss it by a little bit, you're sending pistons out the exhaust, basically.
You're 93, doing some damage.
Yeah, 93, you can get closer to the edge there and have a little bit of a safety window where you won't hurt something.
Everything runs good at partial throttle.
But everything runs, it's wide open throttle, and high load is really we have to worry about, right? So
when you're creating cylinder pressure, that's when octane is very, very important, because of the increased pressures and the increased temperatures.
Yeah, if you basically run out of octane for the cylinder pressure you're running, that's what happens. That's what hurts parts, right? So as long as you can control the cylinder pressure with tuning, or you have enough octane to run that cylinder pressure, those are the two big things. So I would say anywhere between 10.5 to 11.5 to 1. If you have it above 10, it's going to make good power. You're not going to have any issues or anything like that. So let's see, what else? Do you guys choose an engine that doesn't have a lot of aftermarket parts? I assume you're meaning for like projects and stuff, and I would say the answer is sometimes. right? Yeah.
Wow,
Sometimes.
that was a good one.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes it all depends. We're application specific. Plus, we do things that we think people are going to work on, right? So if we see a trend of people working on something that particularly may not have a lot of parts, that you have to create some things for, or be a little creative on how you either put it together, or maybe you just have something like no one offers cams for it, or someone that doesn't offer a lot of the performance parts. There's things that you can do to make it better. It's just if you can, if there's more of a need, that's how parts are created. When someone has a whole bunch of need for it, and it keeps coming up like, oh my God, people want to put cams in, this whatever the heck it is. You can do that, and that's how aftermarket companies create products for things. So anything that is not popular can become popular as long as a lot of people are working on it. Popular platforms, again, that's subjective, because some people they have why isn't there a lot of why isn't there a lot of parts for 4-liter Ford Colognes, right? Now there are some, but there's not a bunch, right? It's because it's easier to maybe do something else, but we will never disparage anybody from working on something that they like, right? Because you can make everything better. On something that doesn't have a lot of parts available, you might have to manufacture your own.
I mean, we've done several builds that I would say are oddball engines, or engines that don't have as much aftermarket support, and doesn't mean you can't build them. There's,
right.
We like engines, right? So we think you could build anything. It might take a little bit more time, might take a little bit more money, but if that's something you want to do, you want to have something different, or you just want to do it because it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely go for it.
Because it's fun.
305.
Yeah. 305. We always get the question, why would you build a 305 when you could just build a 350? Well, a lot of people, they have 305s, right? And again, it's just an engine. I'm always mystified why people think an engine is bad. I mean, if it has bad architecture, that is one thing. This architecture, this is a small block Chevy, right? Does it have a smaller bore? Yes, but that doesn't mean it can't make power. I mean, there's other things that are involved that make an engine junk, like if it has poor materials, or because this thing, the stock ones make 180 horsepower. This one's making significantly higher horsepower than that, but then there's nothing wrong with it, and people think they're cool. Like we could say putting all this money into 350. We could put this money that we put into this one into a big block Ford, and it'll make a lot of power. It's just what you want. We're all for doing what you want, right? There, we don't ever disparage people from just following some trend or going the absolute opposite way and just doing what they like, because we really like that and we appreciate that, because it's all work, right? And you can make anything better, you can make anything run good. It might take a little bit more money, it might take a little bit more creativity, but we love the oddball stuff.
Yeah, well, the problem solving aspect of it is really fun for us, and it's just, I don't know. I mean, I think everybody kind of has this. Like, if you were to go to a car show and you pop the hood on an old like F100 or something, if it's got with a small block Ford, like that's cool. Mm-hmm. You pop the hood and it's got a Ford 300, or you got a rat rod with a slant six. Like, that's just so different and fun. Yeah. And if you can make good power too, then that's even cooler. Yeah. We're all for different stuff.
To us, nothing's a waste of money because it's all fun, right?
Yeah, it's what you want to do and what it's fun. So we did get a good question about somebody who said, how can they get more power out of their 87 302? I would say, and this goes for everybody, if you definitely tune into these. But if you haven't, go back and watch the first, second, and third iterations of this series, this shootout, because. I would say that the hydraulic roller GT40P version of this was a great engine.
It was pretty spicy.
I mean, the heads are I think they're like $750 or $800 for a redone set of heads off the internet.
Yeah, bolt-ons.
Yeah, hydraulic roller can, which you can use. If you get a roller block, I guess 86, that would be right in there, right?
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, you could get if not, you get a roller block, and you could build this combo. I mean, that combo, I should say, for relatively cheap, and it made good power. If you go from, I can't remember what this thing did stock. It was 240s, I think.
Yeah, it was in the low twos.
Low twos. You go from that, you gain over 100 horse. I think that's killer.
Yeah, you can pick up 100 horse relatively easy.
Yeah. So,
and I know that people are jaded nowadays if nothing doesn't make 1,000 horse for $300 or something like that.
Yeah,
so.
But I mean, there's levels to everything, and if you've been watching the show, we try to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
We try to do budgety stuff. We do race engines, we do turbocharged engines, and a power add or whatever. We try to do a little bit of everything so you guys have good content coming constantly. But Yeah, man, I'm really psyched to see what you guys think about this series, this version of it, because it's really cool. Engines make great power.
Yeah, I think they're making a little bit more power than people realize.
Yeah,
right?
I think the assumption is that, like, they made 360 before, right? I think the assumption is that somehow they're making 350 now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there, but this is just kind of a neat thing because we could obviously use different platforms. And if we want to see some different platforms, if you guys want to see maybe something that's another Comparo, because we love doing the Comparos, we love doing the shootouts, right? So the ones that we haven't done, we have a few things that we have in mind.
But if you have ideas, put them in the comments, whether it's other shootouts or just oddball builds or just certain types of builds you want to see for different applications. We look at all that stuff. It helps us figure out what we're going to do in the future. I already saw some BOP big block stuff, so that we think that's cool. That's something we'll look at doing. If you have, we've gotten a lot of requests for imports, so if you have any ideas there, drop them in the comments. We're looking at all that stuff to figure out what we can do.
I assure you, we look at this. We said it before. It's nothing like that's oddball. Like we don't shy away from imports. We haven't had all the pieces fall together. We are dangerously close for something like that, though. And again, because it's an engine, we like it. And it doesn't matter what it is. We are relatively confident we can get it bolted to this apparatus right here, and we can run it. So
all right. Well, I think we covered this pretty good. This will be coming soon. We're gonna head out here. We'll show you our next project.
Oh yeah, we'll show you what's in the old pipeline. If you don't mind the mess, we have a whole shop full of stuff. Hey, what's that thing doing?
Oh, that's coming along. We got some stuff in the works for this. The great thing about our gasser project, our 56 gasser, is that we don't really have a deadline, which sometimes we do have deadlines. This one doesn't have a hard deadline or anything, so it's something that we can pull back if we run out of parts, so we got to wait for a project or something like that. We can pull this thing back in, work on it a little bit, and then go back to building engines and come back to it on and off if we need to.
We are like everybody else. We run out of parts sometimes too, right? Or we can't get something, or we've changed directions. We're just like every other car guy, but like we're going along some path and like, ooh, maybe we should do this. And they're like, well, you can just throw half the stuff you did out the window, and that's okay, right? Because that's the fun of hot rodding. You're gonna change your mind at some point and want to maybe change up something. This, we got a pretty good path on. I mean, it does have an all aluminum 509 cubic inch W series in it that makes great power. I mean, 600 pound-feet of torque. I consider that pretty good, right?
I think it's pretty good, yeah.
and it made just under 600 horsepower. We built it to be a nice street cruiser. I mean, we're not trying to go run Comp Eliminator with it. This is a nostalgia build. The car is absolutely spectacular. It's got a lot of cool parts on it. And this dude's going to be a lot of fun to hammer on, right? So, but like Frankie said, we'll bring it in when we have parts, and the great thing about it is it's not like we got to be anywhere with it anytime soon. This is on our timeline, and we got some good things in the works for it. So stay tuned. So when's this? This is going to air pretty quick, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, I was just looking at that. We just got a question about when the next engine power episode is dropping. I believe it's the first week of March. I'm gonna. Don't lock me down on that.
Yeah,
but
no,
I believe we have a couple episodes airing in March, so get ready because March is going to be an engine power month. It's going to be awesome, and that will be the first one drop. So I think it's a couple of weeks. It's not that far off. And then we got a couple episodes basically with that 302, 305 stuff. That's done. We got a couple episodes in the bank ready to go, and we're working on new stuff, including
this new stuff.
Yeah,
we went from basically junkyardy type stuff, takeout engines, which are great, relatable, and all that. But sometimes we just like to go right from scratch and put throw the kitchen sink at it. So this is that particular project. This is the newest, latest, greatest from Summit Racing's SPC series blocks. This is their Ford version. This is a 8.2 deck, like short deck 302 small block based engine. They have other stuff in the works. They have big bores.
They have tall deck.
They have tall decks. They have a Windsor-based one. So, but this one is the 302 base. This engine is not going to be 302 inches.
Yeah, I was like, so what is this going to be?
Slightly bigger than that.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a big bore, 425 bore, short deck, big inch. So it's going to be 363 cubic inches.
363.
I mean, I consider that big for an 8.2 deck. I think that's pretty cool.
I think that's pretty cool.
It is going to be naturally aspirated. It is going to be over 11.5 to 1. It is going to be hydraulic roller, and it's a street engine. It's still a street engine, not going like crazy race stuff, but it's going to be a very stout street engine that could pull double duty at the track if you need it to. If you want to take this to, you know, road course or drag strip or whatever.
Autocross, whatever.
Autocross, yeah, it's going to be able to do all that. So yeah, first thing out of the way was build 363. You need a big bore, so you need a good foundation. So yeah, Summit SPC block for their 8.2. So there's a 4125 bore, unfinished 4125 bore. You can take it out to 4165 if you want to go a little bit bigger. But so basically all we have to do is we have to deburr it and hone it, which is really nice because that saves us a lot of work.
This block has some good provisions in it. If you want to put a factory roller setup with the spider and the factory with the dog bones, it has the provisions for that. Or you can just run a basically, you know, a tie bar style lifter.
It uses basically all the Ford architecture everywhere, so it's all 302 based. It's got thick cylinders. It's got extra thick decks if you want to go power radder. It's got, you know, it's got a little bit of, it's basically increased strength everywhere. It's a really, it's a really high grade of cast iron. It's cast in like an OEM style foundry over in Germany, and then they're fully machined here in the US. So everything is done except for the bores. That way you can set it up for your application. Because if you're running like if you're running a 2618 or you're running a 4032, your piston to wall clearance obviously changes for that. And depending on the application, your surface profile is going to change. So that way you can set it for your application, but everything else is already done for you. And these things are machined very accurately, so it's a great starting point.
These are awesome. The mains are really nice. The cam bores are really nice. The decks are nice and even. So all the hard stuff that you would normally have to when you're building, take out to a machine shop and do, already done. Now, unless you have a hone at your house, you're probably gonna have to have it honed, right? Which we have that covered here.
So, here we're good, but
this is a spectacular foundation. And then just the regular stuff that's cool. You know, we have an Eagle, you know, 4340 3400 stroke crank. Have an H-beam rod, upgraded ARP 2000 bolts. That's a 5400 length rod. Set of DSS pistons in it. It's got their, you know, X groove on the skirts, so 1.23 millimeter ring pack. As you can see on these are kind of neat because, well, the piston, you're not seeing double. It has an extra valve relief. Not only will it go for our regular 20-degree inline, we will for the heads, we are going to be using something relatively spicy on this one. Trick Flow Twisted Wedge 11Rs, and these are 227 cc runner. These are a bad daddy right here. You know, 280 valve, 1600, 56 cc CNC chamber. These flow a lot of air. And what the 11R is, this has an 11-degree twisted valve angle. A straight inline head has a 20-degree valve angle. These are an 11-degree valve angle and a 13-degree angle on the exhaust. And they are rotated. That's why we have to have this extra little eyebrow in here, because it puts the valve in a different spot.
It's a 5-degree on the intake and a 3-degree on the exhaust, if I remember correctly. So very, very spicy. That's you told me that was a new one, right?
That's
the 227.
Yeah, that's a bad dude. We also have it's a hydraulic roller, and not hydraulic rollers. You know, they come a long way. The lifters, we have a comp lifter in it. It's an Evolution, so it's a cartridge style lifter, so the lifter's rebuildable. Billet steel, you know, that's a Summit Racing's cam. That's one of their Pro SBF series cams. So it's a racy hydraulic roller.
I actually have a cam card here.
Oh, we have a cam card.
I got a cam card here. Did you tell them what the heads flow?
No, I did not.
Oh, 342 at 650,000 left. 337 at 600. That's a bad dude especially for you know, an off-the-shelf head. I mean, that's like super good.
On a 227 cc port at a 280 valve, that is outstanding.
And then so we have a Summit Racing Pro SBF hydraulic roller, their 8 series. So this is a 242 256 on a 110.5. Relatively kind of large hydraulic roller, which is kind of on purpose. This thing's going to have the induction to do it, so we're gonna be spinning it a little bit harder than you would probably normally think about. And then the piece on top that's going to be feeding it all is really Trick. This is their R series, a Trick Flow R series manifold, and it's a carbureted manifold. You can get this in a fuel injection one too, but it is CNC port matched to the 227. So they have a 205 version, which is a smaller version. This is the brand new bigger version, and you could get it port matched for either one depending on what you're doing. But with our big inches, we're going straight to 227. So this is going to be a spicy move.
It's going to be super fun. So But that's what's currently, and see, we have all our so we're gonna do this in a couple of different shows. So we're gonna show obviously all the things that we do, all the deburring, all the honing. We're gonna balance the crankshaft. We're going to obviously assemble it and obviously dyno it. So you're gonna see that. You're gonna come along with us on this journey. So what else? What else you got there?
Yeah. Let's see. We had some questions. Let me scroll back a little bit here. There's some people talking about V6 305s. I'm like, they really swung for the oddball right there. That's cool.
I mean, there's nothing that's off the table. We just gotta make it make sense, and we gotta put a whole bunch of pieces together for things like that to happen. So
Tom at UEM said good morning, and he's looking forward to the dyno runs.
Yep. Very cool, Tom.
Let's see.
Thanks for tuning in.
Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I thought it was over here. Sorry. Somebody asked about 11-to-1 compression for the street. Absolutely, we kind of talked about that a little bit about that.
Zero issues with it. Right.
Zero issues with the correct tune-up, and you know, if you can tune for the V that the engine's going to achieve, and you have the right fuel, really not an issue. We've run as high on regular conventional street stuff. We've run as high as like 11.9 to 1 pretty easily without having to do anything crazy with the tune-up or anything like that. And depending on what you're doing, depends on the control that you have. If you're running EFI stuff with timing control, you have a lot of control over when the engine's under load and when it's not, what the timing does, what the fuel does. You can keep it very, very safe, very easily. Carbureted stuff, it's really no different. You just have to, you need a little more experience at it sometimes just to get it
takes a little
really
bit more
right,
experience at it,
But yeah, absolutely no issues with running 11-to-1 stuff on the street. Let's see. Yes, this is actually live. The day is February 27th, 2026. This is not from 15 years ago. This is actually live.
I don't have like a newspaper. If it was 15 years ago, Frankie would be 12 years old.
Yeah. No, this is actually live. We are, if you don't know, we are constantly making new content for you guys.
That's always a question, right?
We are constantly working on new builds to drop new content. We have our Power Nation channel that airs almost every streaming platform now. It runs 24/7, right? So that's a lot of time to run. So we put old stuff up, we put new stuff up, because we have a lot of cool content, from the past 20 years or so. So we run all that stuff, and we drop our new stuff there as well. On our YouTube channel, we drop new stuff consistently. So if you're just looking for straight new stuff, you can check out the Power Nation and the Engine Power YouTube channels. If you just, if you want to see new stuff, but you like old stuff too, you can check out all the streaming platforms. Basically, I mean, we're DirecTV, Roku, Rakuten, Vizio, Samsung. If you go to the PowerNationTV.com page, there's a Where to Watch tab, and you can click it and see everywhere that you can watch Power Nation. There's, I think it's like 15 or 16.
It's a lot.
Different streaming platforms now, and it's all free. There's no paywall. There's nothing crazy. You can watch it for free 24/7, which I think is pretty cool.
And all of our people that watch us over in the foreign lands, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Like all you people in Australia, all you people in Europe, all you people in South America, thank you for watching. Mexico, Canada, we are in a lot of places. It's fun because we'll go to like PRI or SEMA, and someone will come and say, hey, I watch you, and we're from Uruguay. It's spectacular, right? We love that people there's gearheads everywhere, and we want to help educate and show people what we do and have fun and how to get into this and how to be inspired to work on some of this stuff. So this is a guy we've actually kind of talked about this, where someone was kind of said, how about like grabbing a viewer's engine, and then whether it's finished or kind of like sometimes projects get stuck, bring them in, finish it, and dyno it and run it and stuff. We've talked about that before. So that could be really fun. Logistically, it has a lot more challenges than if we just like start just doing a build on our own. But that could be something that we could do in the future, because I think that would never know.
Yeah, I mean we with our like giveaways and stuff like that, we love giving back to the community, to you guys, our viewers, because you guys support us. This is how we're able to do all this cool stuff.
This is how I pay my mortgage.
Yeah, so we that could absolutely be something that we look at in the future, is like maybe figuring out how we could do that, how to make that work.
Yeah, and maybe we're gonna spitball that one, right? Yeah. We'll make it a contest or make it whatever.
Yeah.
We'll have to get with our people.
Yeah. Someone asked if the rear quarters were cut up on the 56, the gasser, which they are not.
This is the nicest 56 I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I think like it did basically the only bad spots on it were the floor pans, and everything else is super clean on it. So it's all the body's all original.
These are original body panels, and this car was very well taken care of. Right now it's been obviously sanded to bare metal, and we have some 2K primer on it, but this car was absolutely spectacular for its age and condition. So.
Ooh, this is a good shootout. Someone said, how about a 396 versus a 390 versus a 383 built with similar parts?
Oh man,
so big block shootout.
I love big block shootouts.
Which we could also, we could do 454, 460, and 440.
Yeah, no, we could. You're talking our language right there, because that's again near and dear. All that stuff. It's again for us, it's all engines. You can make them all run good. The problem is that every time we do one of these, people think we're biased one way or the other. I assure you, we are not. Right.
And like I said, the 350
because you can swing anything to be biased, right?
I think so far we've tried to make, other than that one time where the compressions were scattered by a whole point, that was just kind of to see, like, this is what you have for parts, this is what it does. But other than that, I think they've been relatively fair and comparables. That they think
the compression was an interesting one because
that was kind of fun,
because it showed once you equalize them back, they both made the same power again, right?
Yeah.
So that is indirectly showed that here's what would happen of two equal engines. One just had a point less low compression. That's what happens, right? That's science and physics right there. So.
This is a good question. Someone said, how much coffee does Pat drink a day?
Oh man, there's a lot.
We drink a lot of coffee. Probably too much.
I mean, if I had to put a number on it, is it a number in cups or ounces or like that? It's roughly, it's 80 to 150 ounces a day. So it's between 8 to 12 cups a day. Is that a lot? I don't think it. It doesn't really affect me that much. I think I'm immune to caffeine at this point, but I drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah. Someone said that similarly configured engines make the same power.
Yeah, no, that's how it works.
Crazy. It's like, yep, that's exactly how it works. Which is kind of fun. That's why that's the fun part of this, is showing that.
Right. We like this, we try to do a lot of times is we try to dispel some of the misinformation. That a lot of people are just, if you don't know, you just don't know. So we try our best to give you accurate data and accurate information. And again, when we're saying what makes an engine good, what makes an engine junk? Well, there's a lot of, that's a pretty vague question, but people are very, very, very passionate about an engine being good or it being junk for whatever reason. So
yeah. Man, now we're just getting a bunch of cool ideas for projects.
We love ideas, right? That's why we do this. We never have any shortage of things to do, right?
Yeah.
But we always want to know what people want to see. That's why people watch, right? We want to show you cool projects, the cool parts we can buy for these projects. We have a lot of we have a lot of opportunity here to build a lot of things, and we are all for it. But our only stipulation is we have to be able to dyno. There's never been a case where we built an engine and didn't dyno it, because that's just not what we do, right?
Yeah. No, I think we've gotten through pretty much most of the questions.
All right.
Keep dropping those ideas in the comments, because we're gonna go. I've gone through some of them. I think they're awesome. So we're gonna keep going through those, and say we use that kind of stuff to figure out what we're gonna do next. So if you have any ideas for shootouts, builds, oddball builds, put them in the comments whenever you see this, because we will go through that and look at all of it.
Should we have an old school versus new school shootout? Maybe like
that could be kind of fun.
Like some sort of, can you build an old school engine to run with a new school one? I already know the answer to that one.
It's like 360, 5.7.
Yeah.
Coyote 302.
Yeah.
5.3.
Yeah.
305.
Like grandpa versus grandson type of thing, right?
You can go 3.7, make it nice and even, but
I know we can figure that out. That's
cool.
That's one of those things. I just thought about that. Look,
okay,
I can go home now. I had one good idea.
Yeah, we'll have to write that down. We'll forget. But all right, I think that's it. We're gonna wrap. Well, if you
I gotta go to lunch. Jeez, Louise.
Yeah, if you do have questions, keep dropping them. We will try and answer after this is all done. But yeah, we have some really cool stuff planned. Stay tuned to the Engine Power and Power Nation social media pages because we'll post updates all the time.
Yeah.
Engine Power YouTube channel will have all the new episodes, and the Power Nation channels on all the streaming platforms will also have the new episodes as they come out in the next couple weeks. And yeah, finally, do not forget to enter the UEM Big Block Powerhouse giveaway because that thing could be yours.
Yeah.
534 cubic inch big block. It could be yours. You could make a table out of it. You could put it in a hot rod.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want with it. But it could be
We
yours.
want you to use it, and we want to see what you
Yeah.
use it in because that's fun for us, right?
Yeah, so make sure you get entered.
Yeah, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell because we will do some cool stuff, and you just never know where we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Please just and keep that coming on the old social media because we love the idea of people talking about things. We engage passionate communities,
Yeah.
and there is nobody more passionate than the people that are on our social media. So thank you very
Absolutely,
much
yeah.
for that. Keep them coming, and hope everybody has a great weekend and go build something cool.
Yeah.
You should have said that you won the chili.